the U.S. government only recognizing two genders.
Well, I don't know. Do you have any other genders that you'd like to name?
There's a lot of stuff going on. Welcome back. My name's David. In today's episode here, we've got Pierre Poilievre absolutely destroying a woke reporter. We've also got multiple other things going on here in Canada and in America. Let's jump into this. First up, we got this one posted by Kirk. It says Amazon is shutting down its operations in Quebec and will move to third-party fulfillment. Amazon employees in Quebec decided to unionize and Amazon lost a challenge at the Labor Tribunal, of course. Almost 2,000 people will lose their jobs. They can thank the union. With Donald Trump coming out yesterday and basically saying the street candy is the major problem that he wants dealt with. What did David Eby say? He doubled down with trying to convince people not to vacation in America. Instead of dealing with the street candy problem he created.
That Canadians will fight. We will stand up and fight. And that includes making decisions about how we spend our money. And we will not spend money in a country that wants to do economic harm to Canadians. And I think that it'll be a difficult discussion and decision for many people. But I'm sure families are having those conversations because it is such an awful thing the president is trying to do.
Meanwhile, we've got stuff like this. Sleepy little Falkland, BC awakes to big news of Super Lab street candy bust. So we've got a view of the facility here. A search of the street candy lab property also uncovered small amount of boom booms and pow pows and zing zings and bing and bangers, body armor, and $500,000 in cash. As you can see here, it says they seized $485 million in fennel and street candy. Officers have taken down Canada's largest, most sophisticated street candy super lab. Maybe this is what Donald Trump is talking about. This article's from 3 months ago. We got this one here. CBSA officers seize a combined 246 kilograms of the Cocoa White Bam Bam powder at Aldergrove and Pacific Highway commercial ports of entry. This is, once again, British Columbia. Estimated street value over $6.6 million. Meanwhile, where's David Eby? What's he doing about this? Nothing. Next up, we've got Anita Nand running her mouth at the Quebec retreat here. Posted by Brian Lilly, it says after spending more than 9 years doing everything in their power to stop natural resource industries from growing and exporting their goods, Liberals are now saying that we need to do the opposite.
As the Prime Minister has said, we will use all tools in our toolbox to address any illegal tariffs that come forward. And that should not just be one province alone. All of us need to bear the sacrifice that would be made if we move forward with retaliatory measures of this sort.
We do not need to bear any sacrifice. There should be no sacrifice. We've got this bumbling buffoon, Justin Trudeau, making the worst decisions of this country's history. He should bear those sacrifices alone. All of them.
But as I said, Canada has vast natural resources and raw materials, and we need to diversify our markets going forward so that we ourselves are leveraging the depth of our natural resource sector.
These are the people that blocked all of the mines, all the projects, nuclear, oil, gas, pipelines, Energy East, Northern Gateway, you name it. They blocked everything. They blocked that ocean-powered energy off of the East Coast there. They blocked everything. But now they're saying, oh, we should diversify a little bit. No, you guys need to get out of government. They wonder why Pierre doesn't release his policy plans. Every time he does, they steal them. Yeah, it happens every time. You just look at what he said with building high-density housing around transit stations. They jumped on that one after a few months and then started claiming it as their own. We got this one posted by Chris talking about carbon taxes here. So we've got federal fuel charge, $160 on this $778 of propane delivery. How's that for making life affordable in Canada? I've got everyone replying here. Marty up north, $165, $53. Carbon tax, carbon tax, carbon tax. Mine looks similar to this. The BC carbon tax here, $20, 25 cents. They just nickel and dime you for every little thing. Federal carbon charge, $87. These guys are criminals. They're stealing our money. My brother who has MS just got his propane tank filled. Bill was $1,000, $700 propane, $300 carbon tax. It's killing him. A lot of Canadians are losing hope. They're getting pushed out into the streets, into their cars, into tents because of Justin Trudeau and all these liberals that supported him. Next up, we got this breaking. Donald Trump here. Basically, he's ordered the Coast Guard sending special forces to the southeastern border here around Florida to make sure there aren't boats of people coming to America illegally. As this guy said, Trump 2.0 is showing no mercy. And the reason for this is because Trump, he can't be elected again. In America, you can only do 2 terms. So he can come out full bore this time. And it's not going to hurt him being reelected again. Check out this clip here on CBC. So we've got Kate Harrison. She absolutely destroys this lady here after she basically said Pierre Poilievre is trying to use the situation for his own political aspirations and all this stuff.
Hope that he actually will put something before his own political ambitions. and that is to try and preserve and protect Canada's economy and fight as best as we can.
Kate, you don't like that analysis? What's your thoughts there?
It is. Yeah, my God, if we're talking about political ambitions, we should be talking about Justin Trudeau, not talking about Pierre Poilievre. It is not incumbent on the leader of the opposition to table what Canada's plan for tariffs and a retaliatory response should be. That is the duty of the Prime Minister of Canada. Unfortunately, he abdicated the responsibility and the leadership role because he couldn't see past his own ego, and he has forced Canada into inward navel-gazing political drama as opposed to actually coming up with a plan. I think the issue right now, David, is not what Pierre Poilievre thinks about retaliatory tariffs. It's that there's too many people saying what they think retaliatory tariffs should be. There's no clear negotiator for Canada right now, and that is the fault of the Prime Minister, not Pierre Poilievre.
Well, look, I wasn't asking Michelle for that clarity to put anything on Pierre Poilievre just to make sure I hadn't missed something, because I thought he was like, yeah, we need a robust response, but he had no clear position yet on what to do about oil. He says he's not the Prime Minister. He doesn't need a position. Neither is Daniel Smith. Neither is Doug Ford.
Yet still, Justin Trudeau doesn't have a position on what's going on with these tariffs. He's too busy sucking his thumb under his desk. Let's just go back here. So right this moment here, as she starts to rant and David Cochrane gets a whiff of it, he goes, okay. I don't know if somebody said something in his ear or if he's like, oh, crap, we can't have this big rant on CBC. It's very interesting.
Because he couldn't see past his own ego, and he has forced Canada into inward navel-gazing politics.
This right, okay. He sits back, he looks away, he's dismissive to her. This is very telling body language. I don't know if so I don't know if someone's whispering in his ear or if he's just like, okay, we got to shut this down real quick. And Kate Harrison knows it. That's why she's speaking really fast. Next up, we got Pierre Poilievre here, absolutely destroying this woke reporter. This is beautiful.
Obviously, you want Canada first. You want to help entrepreneurs, and we've talked to a lot who want to enter into the U.S., but they're kind of skeptical right now with these potential tariffs. So if elected as Prime Minister down the line, whenever that election is, what would your strategy be to work with President Trump?
Well, first and foremost, we would unfortunately and reluctantly have to retaliate against tariffs applied to our businesses, and then we would go to the grassroots American economic interests that are on our side. The union leaders and business owners in the Midwest that use Canadian energy. We would go to the U.S. states that buy our electricity, the major exporters of the $50 billion of manufacturing equipment and machinery that Canadian companies buy from Americans. We go to those vendors and say, listen, we need a free trade deal that allows us to exchange our goods and services without tariffs, because it's in your interest. And that kind of pressure from the ground up will, I think, help convince President Trump to make a deal that will be both good for Canada and the United States. He is, after all, a deal maker.
It's quite clear Pierre understands who Donald Trump is with that statement there. He is a deal maker, and he needs to make a deal, not threaten the guy. We got all these premiers across Canada, Justin Trudeau, and all these liberals threatening Donald Trump. It's the wrong approach. Make a deal with the guy. Address the problem, the street candy, which he has stated, which is going over our border. Show what you're going to do about it. Show the investments. Show that things are actually happening. Address the guy where he's at. Make a deal.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, it seems like, Premier Doug Ford seems to be taking the forefront here. He talks about his project AmCam. The premiers met with, outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. They were all there in Ottawa, minus the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, was in Mar-a-Lago. She's seemingly not wanting to sign this deal with the rest of the premiers. She wants to protect the oil in Alberta. How do you make sure everyone's copacetic? Everyone, you talked about Canada first. How do you work with the premiers right now to make sure they're all on the same page?
Well, you need a strong Prime Minister for that. Can you name one governor that's been leading the charge on the American side of this?
No.
No, because the separate states are not all speaking different messages. They have one strong, nationally elected leader with a new mandate. And on this side, we have a weak, effectively former Prime Minister who's thoroughly discredited and widely unpopular. He has no credibility with anyone. And then you have a squabbling group of other liberals fighting for political power. That's left a vacuum. So effectively, we have 10 foreign ministers in the form of premiers who are all running around saying different things. What we need is a axe the tax election now, so we can elect a strong government that will take back control. Yes, take back control of overspending and taxes, inflation, immigration, all of that, but also take back control of our diplomatic stance and go to Washington with strength to put Canada first. And that is what I will do as soon as we get the election done.
You know, you talk about the tax, the carbon tax election. It seems like people who are throwing their names in a leadership race, whether it's Mark Carney or Chrystia Freeland, who CTV News has learned that, she's not going to have the carbon tax reportedly a part of her platform.
You sure about that?
Well, we'll see. We'll have to see. She came in here and we chatted with her, but do you feel like you might have to adjust, pivot a little bit the message, maybe not a axe the tax, maybe switch it to something else, or you're not buying? You're shaking your head. You're not buying that.
You're telling me. So let's start with Freeland.
Yeah,
she's been Justin Trudeau's finance minister. Administering the carbon tax. She raised the carbon tax by 167%. She bragged that she raised the carbon tax during an inflation crisis. And then you have carbon tax Carney. This guy says the carbon tax is too low. And yesterday, he just won the endorsement of the crazy carbon tax minister, Stephen Guilbeault, who has said he would resign from the Liberal Party if they ever got rid of the carbon tax, which means that Carney has made a deal with him that they will pretend that the carbon tax has been put aside until after the election. And then if they win, not only will they bring it back, they will raise it higher than ever before.
Yeah, Stephen Guilbeault made that threat basically to Trudeau back when he did that carve out for Atlantic Canada. So that is a great point, because Stephen Guilbeault, he's not changing his position. That's his life position. There's no way Guilbeault would support Carney if there wasn't going to be a carbon tax. It's just not going to happen. With that said, Stephen Guilbeault spoke again from the Quebec retreat about this.
Are you okay with getting rid of the carbon tax?
As I said yesterday, my statement to many of you yesterday was a difficult one. I continue to believe that
it's a difficult one to say that we don't have to have the consumer price on carbon. Moneybags McGee here making money off of our money. He's got no ethical problem with that, but taking our money, he's got a problem with that.
Consumer price on pollution is one of the best tools we have to fight climate change. It's not the only one. We also have an industrial component to it. To carbon pricing, which is very important, which gives us the bulk of our emission reduction. But our plan is not based on one single measure. Our plan to fight climate change is based on 100 of different measures that we've put in place. And I will continue to work with Mr. Carney to ensure that if we don't go ahead with the consumer carbon price, that we have something else in place that will both help Canadians with affordability.
We have something else in place. He's saying it himself. He's not hiding this. They're going to bring in some sort of other carbon tax measure. They'll just stick a different name on it. Wrap up that pig, different lipstick, send it out.
Affordability, but that will also help us to achieve our 2030 targets.
You can achieve your own 2030 targets in Davos. Get this guy out of our country. Guilbeault for jail, yeah. Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault says he'll work with the CCP and Carney to introduce an alternative to the carbon tax. Here's him sitting on that board in China. Guilbeault accused of siphoning $254 million to his own company. That's not going anywhere.
These are lying liberals. They cannot be trusted when they come to you after raising the tax for 9 years and having passed a law to quadruple it up to 61 cents a liter. A few days before the election, come to you and say, oh, whoops, we made a mistake. We're going to suspend that. You know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to bring it back. They're going to raise it higher than ever. Don't trust the lying liberals. There's only one party that has always said and will always do one thing: axe the tax.
All right, let's go back to D.C. right now. Obviously, on his first day on the job, President Trump signed an executive order. The U.S. government only recognizing two genders, male, female. They're unchangeable. If elected as prime minister, is that something that you're going to kind of walk in line with, or what are your feelings on that executive order?
Well, I don't know. Do you have any other genders that you'd like to name?
Me personally?
Yes.
I'm just asking more so if you're in line with what he is saying. Do you agree with what he's saying? Is that something that you would be lockstep with if elected as prime minister?
Well, I'm not aware of any other genders than men and women. I mean, if you have any other that you want me to consider, you're welcome to tell me right now.
Get him.
Well, there's personally, I am a man. I am a, okay, we'll say cis man. There are people there who, they say they're
Me too.
gender neutral. Well. You're a man, yes. There are people who say they're gender neutral. Yeah, they say they're gender neutral. They're a trans person. Is that something that you would recognize here, whereas in the States, at least with their U.S. government, the way they're seeing it, there's only two?
I'm only aware of two, but I mean, if you come up with another list, then you're welcome to do that. But I'm aware of two. And as far as I'm concerned, we should have a government that just minds its own damn business and leaves people alone to make their own personal decisions. That's the kind of government I'm going to run.
And with that, the current government, they currently have passports that allow people to put on, gender neutral on their passport. Advocate groups want the government, mind you, the outgoing government, to ask the U.S., would the U.S. recognize these passports, obviously on their way out, if you are the next prime minister?
That's absurd. When does this end? How far does this go before people are identifying as elephants or wooden cups? And he mentioned transgender earlier. Transgender is just the switching of genders. It's still male or female. We are not going down the Looney Tunes road of having all of these made up genders: drag king, drag queen, femme queen, gender queer, non-op, hydra, pangender, butch. Apparently butch is a gender. Gender fluid, femme, androgynous, gender variant. This madness must end.
That's something that you would advocate for?
I have to be honest. Yeah. I have to be honest with you. I just saw your segment on homeless encampments that are popping up all over Toronto. We've got 25% of our population in poverty. Housing costs have doubled. Crime is rampaging through our streets. I just find it to be a strange priority to spend time talking about this. My priority is to give people back control of their lives, bring back Canada's promise that anyone who works hard gets a powerful paycheck and pension that buys affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods. That's the promise we need for Canadians. If Liberals want to talk about different labels for gender that they want to put on passports in the United States, they can do that. I'm going to talk about the things that will bring home Canada's promise.
Okay.
There it is. Some common sense for once.
Let's talk about housing, because I'm not upper middle class. I don't even know what I am right now, but making ends meet for a lot of people is very hard. So we understand some of your plan for housing, giving incentives for municipalities to building such. Canada's massive. A lot of our population is by the border. Is there anything we could? This is something I've thought about, just driving around Canada, specifically in BC going north. Yeah. There's a lot of land out there. Is there something that, if elected as prime minister, could be implemented that we can start building more homes, like elsewhere, places where there's really not much infrastructure built right now?
Yes, this is a very good question. First of all, I just want to get out of the way one thing. I want to axe the sales tax on new homes to save you up to $50,000. I also want to incentivize municipalities to speed up permits, free up land, and cut development charges to build. The provinces should be pressured to take their sales tax off. Those combined changes would save hundreds of thousands of dollars on each home. But you're right. We have the second biggest landmass in the world. We have the fifth most sparsely populated landmass on planet Earth. And yet we have the fewest homes per capita in the G7. We need to free up that land. Now, the federal government is the largest landowner. So I've said I'm going to sell off 15% of all federal buildings and thousands of acres of non-ecologically sensitive federal land to build. And I will be challenging provinces and municipalities to look at their land inventory and say, what could we put here? Is there room for a home? We have major parts of our land that are close to the 49th parallel, so very close to the United States, and a lot of economic opportunity that are almost uninhabited. We need to free up that land to build more homes as well. So that's how we're going to do it. Get out of the way, cut the taxes, let the builders build.
We should really be looking at around major cities like Vancouver and Toronto, areas outside of town, and build a new city. Because at this point, we have too many people. If they master planned, built a city, designed the whole thing out, went in there, laid out the infrastructure and the roads, and then let builders come in and buy up the plots of land and build houses, and already went in there and started to build hospitals and schools and getting that all set up, master plan a city, a new city from scratch, with the amount of land we have, we could easily do this. I'm thinking specifically in British Columbia here, we have so much land. There's a lot of areas, if you go just halfway up the province, if you built a major hub up there, a major city city, or even just took one of the existing cities, but even if you picked an area that was really large that say could accommodate 1 million people, start building that out, then more of the population would start moving up there and you would have more land, more open spaces to build stuff. It would open up more farmland. You've got places like in the lower mainland, Vancouver, there's farmland in Abbotsford, but there's people trying to buy that up and build condo towers, but it's the only place that produces fruits and vegetables in that region. You don't want to be taking away that land, but there are other areas. If more people lived in the middle of British Columbia or a couple hours north, if you had a major city up there, you could have farms up there. It would accommodate the migration of Canada's citizens to not be all completely congested into Vancouver or Toronto. Pierre absolutely destroyed T1000's little brother here, but take a look at the comments. I'm pretty sure he just answered that question simply with, I want a government that minds its own business. Pierre got the reporter stumbling in his words, counting down the days until this liberal mess is over. Pierre handled that perfectly. I can't even put into words how disgusted I am with the Liberals, NDP, and their remaining supporters. He's our only hope in Canada now. Sadly, that is the truth. Pierre is our only hope. There's no one else that's got common sense in the government. Look at all the leaders. Jagmeet Singh, definitely not. He's all about his pension and himself. Elizabeth May, she's a Trudeau supporter. The Bloc only cares about Quebec. What's next? Are we going to start digging down into all these other parties like the Rhino Party, the Elephant Party, Pineapple Party? Pierre's going to have a tough job ahead of him here with the state of our economy, with Donald Trump. I think he's the right man for the job.